Good evening and welcome to election 2014. Tonight is the fifth in our series of live debates in the lead up to the coming general election on the 20th of September. Well, what another week it has been. The Dirty Politics show appears to be running out of puff, with the hacker who claimed to have so much more to offer signing off and turning his computer off for good. The true fundamentals of the election are taking over. Parties have been frantically releasing policies and you, the voter, are left wondering what this really means. What does it mean when the policies are released and how will they affect you? Each week on election 2014, on an electorate-by-electorate basis, we are joined by the candidates looking to represent their respective electorates in the coming term. We're discussing the issues in the electorate and the wider Canterbury region. However, each week I ask the same question, and for those of you who watch us weekly, you will know what I'm about to say. How well do you, the viewer, know your candidate, what they stand for, and most importantly, how effective will they be if elected to represent their electorate in the next government? It is just under 2 weeks until voting day, and we want you to be better informed when you cast your vote. This week we are joined by candidates from the Ilam electorate. Now, this has been a national safe seat since the seat was created in 1996 and has been held by the same National Party candidate. I start with welcoming sitting MP for Ilam, Sarah Minister, EQC Minister and Transport Minister, Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Good evening.
I would also like to welcome Conservative Party candidate, John Stringer.
Good evening.
Good evening. I would also like to welcome the Internet Party candidate, the first one we've had in this series, Beverly Ballantyne.
Thank you, good evening.
And I'd also like to welcome John Culture, Green Party candidate.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. And James Dan, representing the Labor Party as a candidate. Good evening.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Now, following the format of previous weeks, I'd like each candidate to tell the viewers about yourself at a personal level, your experience, your alignment with the party, and what you represent and what they represent, being the parties. Each candidate, but this is at a personal level, so the party come a bit later on, the personal level now. Each candidate will have 90 seconds, and tonight I'm going to start with James Dan. Please tell viewers about you and why they should vote for you.
Right, thank you. So my name's James Macbeth Dan. I'm the Labor candidate for Ilam. I was born and raised in Christchurch. I've lived here all of my life except for a couple of years when I went down to Otago. I studied for a degree in biochemistry and also a Bachelor of Arts in Classics. I came back to Canterbury where I did my postgraduate degree and then my Masters in Molecular and Cellular Biology. And then I went into the med school at the hospital where I've been working on endometrial cancer research for the last few years. I've put that on hold because I wanted to run in Ilam because I think that here in this city we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make a truly 21st century city. I've been involved in the Labor Party for a number of years, helping out with Ruth Dyson over in Port Hills. I've also been involved in things such as the local body elections and the Christchurch East by-election last year, and which was a resounding success for Labor. I've been involved in the water rights movement, which has seen a large protest movement which has happened since the national government removed the ECAN, democratically elected ECAN, and that's involved a number of protests, especially before the earthquakes, but it's still a real issue that matters to a lot of people. I've been living in the central city for most of the last decade, and I've seen a lot of changes there. Obviously, after the quakes, it's become a very different area. I believe that that's where we really should be focusing a lot of our attention at the moment. There's a lot of empty space and a lot of empty promise. So I'm running at Ilam because I think that Labor has a better vision for what the city could be. So I hope that you'll support me and Ilam this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to hear from John Culture.
Thank you. So I'm the Ilam Greens candidate, and I want to tell you about what inspires me to front up to the challenges of this campaign. So the Greens want a cleaner, fairer, smarter New Zealand. In Christchurch, people talk about life before, during and after the quakes. And I was inspired by the way people felt empowered to act, to get involved, to lead and support each other. Our meetings, social events and working bees gave us a new confidence to unite as communities. And through our shared experiences, we found that deeper level of connection that kicks in during a crisis. The Greens held public forums where we actually listened to people, and out of those forums came a greener Christchurch policy, which articulates our desire for a people-led recovery with environmental restoration and social needs to the fore. It called for a beautiful, natural an accessible city, which in turn acts as a magnet, attracting people and businesses back to the city. I'm inspired that under the weight of the current government's anti-democratic rule and their build and they might come business-led philosophy, there is real people power and democracy bubbling underneath Christchurch. So we can rebuild a fairer, more democratic and a smarter Christchurch. Party Vote Green 2014.
Thank you very much. Now we've got our first Internet Mana Party candidate on the series, Beverly Ballantyne. Thank you.
Thank you. I joined the Internet Party. My story is a little unique. I recently saw an ad on Trade Me advertising a new Prime Minister. So I clicked the link and I found the Internet Party. I went along to my first meeting expecting them to sit and explain what they were all about, what their policies were, and the tables were turned. They didn't go about it that way at all. They asked me what my experiences were, what mattered to me, and they treated the crowd that turned up as having really valuable experiences to contribute to policy. So I quickly realised that the Internet Party is something quite different. Their core founding principles are based on the spirit of the internet, so there's crowdsourcing, research, openness, freedom, connectedness, fairness and innovation. And in addition to that, our partnership with Internet Mana has got a lot of core shared principles. These include Mana Akitanga, which is sharing our wealth, Ngā Momoe, which is a future of hope, and Rangatiratanga, a free and independent nation. So we've got lots of policies that I really care about. One of them is feeding the kids, and that's providing lunches, breakfasts, health and dental care and social support services to 100,000 lower decile school kids who go to school hungry each day. We want free tertiary education and no parental means testing on student allowances. We want to build 30,000 new state rental homes over 3 years. We want to protect New Zealand's sovereignty by pulling out of Five Eyes and opposing the TPPA and ending mass surveillance of New Zealanders. But most of all, Internet Mana shifts the role of the government from a rule-enforcing entity to a democratic service for the people. So Party Vote Internet Mana. Thank
you very much. John Stringer, Conservative Party.
John Stringer, the Ireland candidate for the Conservative Party. I spent 25 years in the National Party and I joined the Conservative Party because I believe in a much stronger voice for the people in Parliament. The Conservative Party attracted me after several decades working with National because it allows greater tools for the public to hold the Parliament to account. So one of our foundational policies is referendum, citizens-initiated referendum based on the Swiss model where it's been done successfully for many, many decades. I think MMP produces a different environment whereby groupings are more important than single parties. And what's happened is that more of our democracy has been moved away with list members of Parliament, MPs who are not actually elected. I think we need another tool to give the public more power to hold the Parliament to account. So that's one of the key policies that attracted me. Locally speaking, I grew up in Christchurch and I went to Christchurch Boys High School in Elmwood and Heaton and raised my kids here, brought them back to Christchurch so they could be Cantabrians. Worked a lot with Jerry Brownlee as the National Member of Parliament here and first voted in what was then Fendleton for Philip Burden. But as I said, MMP provides a new opportunity for groupings. And this election we have a unique opportunity and you have a choice in Ireland. We can vote for a different candidate in a different party to help strengthen the possibility of a more stable centre-right government. The Conservative Party is a positive choice, a choice where you've not had one in the past, and it gives you a stronger say in the democracy we have in New Zealand. So it's John Stringer, Conservative in Ireland.
Thank you very much. Finally, it's time to hear from the Honourable Jerry Brownlee, sitting MP for Ireland.
Well, thank you, Tim. So since 1996, I've been the elected representative here, and that's a huge privilege that this electorate has afforded me. And I've taken that responsibility extremely seriously, and every time that there is a matter being discussed in Parliament, it's always this place that I think of first. This is where I've lived all my life. It's where I choose to make my home. It's where I want to bring my family up. And it is a part of New Zealand that I have a great love for. The last few years have seen events and circumstances here in Canterbury that none of us could have foreseen. I remember growing up thinking that Canterbury and Christchurch were geologically very safe places, and that there were other parts of New Zealand that might experience the sort of misfortune that we have. So I've been the government's face over the last 4 years for earthquake recovery and response, and that's caused the need for making some decisions that are popular, some that are unpopular. The point is, though, that without decisions, there are many of those community groups that have responded, many of the people, the thousands of people who are daily working to make this city a better place, could have been left without as much direction as necessary. And while we have had a choppy time with some parts of the community, I think by and large the way in which people have responded has been quite extraordinary. So I want you to vote for me again so that I can continue the work that has been done under a John Key-led government. We haven't been for one moment stinting in responding to the needs here in Christchurch, and with a strong, stable government focused on growing the economy, the chances for Christchurch are all that much better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've got some bills to pay. It's time for us to take a short break, and when we return, we'll be talking about the economy in the Ilam electorate. We'll be talking about the wider Canterbury region as well, so don't go far. Welcome back to Election 2014, where we're identifying the important issues for the Canterbury region in the lead up to the coming general election. Before the break, we heard from the candidates and we learned about them at a personal level. Candidates looking to represent the Ilam electorate in the coming general election. We heard from what they stand for and what they personally are about during this campaign and in the next 3 years. It is now time to look at the economy and a key economic issue facing the Ilam electorate, well actually all electorates, the whole country. We're going to talk taxation. There was some initial uncertainty from the top of the Labor Party last week as to whether the family home in a trust is caught under their proposed capital gains tax policies. However, clarity was provided. Mr Cunliffe took advice from advisors, but there's still a question as to whether there's an inheritance tax lurking in drag with the short window around the sale of an inherited property. Major issue for a lot of families, a lot of people as they're looking to, intergenerational transfer of wealth. Furthermore, we've also had an interesting and probably not surprising divergence of views around income tax treatment between the parties. Now, in yachting terms, we've really got a split tack on the tax policy leading up to the election. The question is whether to lower tax rates or to raise them. Labor say tax the top few percent who pay near half the net income tax, whereas National have a view of relieving tax, looking at some tax cuts in the future, providing more income tax, which will end up in the economy. I'm going to start with James Dan. Raising taxes further on those who pay the most around the net tax. Talk me through this policy and talk me through the Labor side of the capital gains and inheritance side.
Well, I think that when Helen Clark came into power in 1999, she raised the top tax rate to 39 cents for those earning over $60,000. What we're talking about is raising the top tax rate to 36 cents in the dollar over $150,000. It's a very, very different kettle of fish from what happened then. And when Helen did it in 1999, the sky didn't fall. We're talking about here is a more progressive tax system, and people have to remember that it is a progressive tax system, so you only start paying the top tax rate when you earn over that first dollar over the top tax threshold. Okay,
John Culture?
Well, I think the inheritance tax scenario is not one that's central to this election. It's certainly one that I haven't looked into. So I'm not quite prepared for that question, but I will say that the Greens are interested in tackling the big issues of the day, and that is indeed the climate, and it's also poverty. And so our climate plan is a tax. It's a tax break. We're putting a price on carbon, and we will be giving a carbon tax cut to individuals and businesses. So we're taking it seriously. Also, we are putting the top tax rate up to 40%, and that is not a great deal. It only kicks in at 140k, so don't worry, John Stringer, you're not going to get zapped.
I wasn't worried, my friend. 40% tax rate. What about GST on top? That's 50.
Well, do you want to feed these kids or what? Do you want to have hungry,
add on the ACC levies and the
poor
petrol
kids in this country?
I mean, that's the tax rate of more than 50%. Is that what you're promising the voters of Ilam? 50% taxes?
How much tax does John Key pay?
Doesn't matter what Don keeps paying. What about the voters of
honestly,
Ireland?
we have to tackle child poverty.
You want the people of Ireland to pay
accept
40% income tax,
these excuses that we can't do it. It's really quite
plus
pathetic.
ACC levies, plus EQC, and plus petrol taxes. Is that all you've got to give us? Is more tax?
Do you want to have a government? Do you want a government?
I don't want Ireland voters to pay 40% income tax, plus GST, plus EQC taxes, levies, ACC levies, and petrol.
140,000 or more.
You can't just keep lifting taxes.
Which is above.
So can I ask you then, adding that tax, the 40% in, can we also then ask you the question of the minimum wage going up, which was announced last week? We only had minutes before the show to be able to talk about it. The minimum wage is going to be, that's going to be adding a significant impact to a lot of the business owners, which there are a number sitting in the electorate who are also going to be paying the tax.
They'll have to pay 40% of it in tax.
New Zealand has, we've degenerated into a low-wage economy, and unfortunately that has resulted in widespread poverty. We have 280,000 children who are in the poverty category. It's simply not good enough to say that we can't help them. I'm sorry, that's not acceptable.
But John...
Well, it's not. The way to help them is not to start taxing production and starting to strip things out of the economy. The reality is that we've had 1,600 people a week going off welfare into work for quite a time now, and people will always be better off if their income is coming from a working income. And I think the whole mentality around saying simply tax people at one bracket of the economy in order to advantage people at the other actually does those people in the other bracket quite a disservice.
It does.
But when it comes to issues like child poverty, we do have our breakfast in schools program, and we do encourage people to take advantage of that. But in the end, if you are just going to say that the government fills up a gap and deny parental responsibility, then I think you've got quite a problem.
There's a huge number of people on a wage in New Zealand, on the minimum wage. There's something like in the vicinity of 300,000 people on that. They cannot make ends meet. We have to do something about that problem. Their children deserve to thrive
I think you need to
the
know
same
where the
way
thresholds
as any
kick
other
in.
child in the society. They need the same opportunities. Sorry, charity is not acceptable anymore.
Well, that's
we have
exactly what
massive
you're
unemployment
proposing.
in this country. The unemployment rates are...
Tax is not charity.
Well,
The
I'm sorry,
unemployment
if you're
redistribution.
taxing someone to give that money to someone else, that is a form of charity.
No, it's not charity. It's,
And I'm afraid it's
redistribution
patronising as well.
And that's the idea of the
So let's,
state. Do you believe in the state? Do you believe that
Not
the
that
state
big.
should do anything?
Not that big.
Don't bring the argument down to that point. I mean, the reality
said
is that
that
we all believe in the
tax was
state.
charity.
But that doesn't mean I believe that I have to agree with your position. What I said is...
I don't have to agree with your position, and that's
right.
what I came in, and I
That's
was
good.
arguing
Now,
about that.
what I'm saying is that it is far better to create an environment where people can earn through work rather than being put in a position in a constrained economy, which we would be with 5 new taxes, including taxes on water.
Absolutely. We believe
taxes
that
on-
people should be working.
Well, do you want an answer?
But if you look at an area like parts of Ireland, there are mesh blocks where the median wage is $14,600.
Yes, but
there are
that-
people who
yeah.
cannot make ends meet with that. You know,
So
this
why tax
electorate,
them more, James? Why tax them more?
in your electorate, there are 25% of households earn over $100,000, and yet you have other parts of the electorate where the median wage is $18,000, $14,000 a year.
Well, the median income, of course, for the entire electorate is $28,000. So to suggest that we're somehow a wealthy and privileged electorate, I think is wrong. We've got a very high fixed income population in Ireland, and it worries me every time I hear about some of that income being further taxed.
And so do you worry about what's happening to the rents?
Every tax that's being applied at the present time, or proposed to be applied, would have a negative effect on low-income families.
As does a GST, which you raise from
Well, the
12.5 to 15%.
GST was
it's a
direct
regressive
swap,
tax.
a direct swap with
It's
income tax
it's a
reduction.
regressive tax.
Well, it's a direct swap with income tax. That's what we did. We lowered tax. Your party certainly didn't want us to do that, but we did, and we think that was the right thing to do.
Absolutely, and there's a
But
difference
Tim,
in
this
policy.
continual sumo wrestling match between National and Labour has really got New Zealand nowhere. The Conservative Party's got a completely different concept, which is to provide the first $20,000 of income for all people tax-free and then a flat tax rate. That leaves the money back in the hands of the people. Instead of this merry-go-round, $1.1 billion simply collecting the money to give it back to people. Why not let them keep it in their pockets, the first 20,000, rather than tax. The only thing the left ever grows is taxes. How many taxes are you proposing? New taxes are you proposing this election? 5 new taxes. You talk about people on low incomes, but you want to throw another 5 taxes on top of them. And that's wrong.
Instead of just talking about tax cuts and election lollies. You know,
New Zealanders are entitled to less tax.
Tell us how it advantages people if you apply a much higher carbon charge inside the economy, which will be felt in fresh food and other sorts of basic commodities. Hang on. So isn't that ridiculous that you're going to somehow attract people to the green message by saying we're going to put up the carbon charges on everything, but then we're going to give you a carbon tax credit? That's ridiculous.
Well, we're actually interested in real issues, and climate change is the biggest issue of our time.
No, tax is
to
a real
ignore
issue.
it is gross irresponsibility.
No one is ignoring it.
Therefore, a climate, a carbon charge is an absolute necessity. The current emissions trading system has been rorted. It doesn't work. It's broken. We need to do something.
If you went back 2 elections, that's exactly what the Green Party were proposing, an emissions trading scheme. Our government brought it in, and it certainly is working for those that are part of it. Your problem is you don't like the price.
We're going to have to take a break. It's time for us to take the break. So when we return, we'll be talking about the infrastructure in the Ilam electorate. Welcome back to election 2014. Before the break, we heard from the candidates looking to represent the Ilam electorate in the next government, and we were talking about the economy and we focused on tax. I'd now like to talk about infrastructure, specifically in a post-earthquake environment. Let's talk about the airport, growth tension in the sprawling business parks. There's been a lot of business relocating to the parks out by the airport and Wariki Road. There's been a lot of activity up in the Papanui Way. I'd like to start with Beverly Ballantyne. Beverly, your views on the way that the infrastructure in the electorate and what's going to be done in the next term?
Well, one of the key objectives of the Internet Mana Party is to really focus on digital infrastructure, and we know that even in New Zealand, despite the fact that internet today is as important as the telephone was 50 odd years ago, there's 200,000 Kiwi homes and 69,000 of those are with school-aged children who don't even have access to the internet. So we really want universal, cheap, fast internet everywhere in New Zealand, and we really see that as benefiting businesses in particular, but people in general, because the internet is just such an important part of modern day life. And if you're going to be competitive in any sort of economic sense, you really need to have world-class 21st century digital infrastructure. So that's one of the most important policies from Internet Mana.
John?
Well, housing is the hot issue in the city, and it's been an issue that's festered along for too long, causing so much stress and hardship. And many people have experienced firsthand substandard repair work and shoddy building practices. And it seems like the city is awash with cowboys. We could well be looking at another leaky home scenario. The scale of the problem is absolutely, it's a worry. So the Greens want to introduce a national technical qualification for administering building codes and require that our building inspectors are trained to that standard.
More bureaucracy.
I don't think the residents of Ilam who are in the midst of earthquake repairs would want to hear. They would like to know that their earthquake repairs are up to standard.
And I think that's the surety that they do get through the Fletcher program. One of the reasons why we decided to give people the opportunity to get their repairs done through a single project management office was so that there was a single place to go. Now there's a whole lot of stuff talked about, difficulties that people are having.
But there's no research to support the methods that are being used.
What I would say too is that we have a single place for comeback in the future. And I tell you what, I think that if you look at the 60,000 plus houses that have been repaired under the program, then I'm sure that your satisfaction rate among those will be far higher than you'll get among the 20-odd thousand opt-outs. Well, I'm happy to hear from people that have got a problem, but I'll tell you what,
turn up to the community meetings, Jerry.
there are 700.
Where were you last week?
There are 700 homes that are the properties that are currently in dispute with EQC. A lot of those are about the land issues. A large number of them are about cosmetic arrangements around the house. One of them, certainly I know, is that the builder didn't tidy up the property well enough after he left. So there's a range of things. Now, you asked the question why I didn't turn up to the TV3 performance at Shirley Boys High last week. I was in discussion with them for 3 weeks before that, and I said, if you can tell me who the people are that are going to put their case to the nation, and I can know what their circumstances is, then I can help. But if you're going to line me up...
The hall was filled with hundreds of people. How could they possibly have described to you every single case?
Well, I only spoke to 3 people. And then they ran one another.
A lot more than that, and there were hundreds.
On
and
air,
if you've gone to any of the Southern No Response for Claimants meetings, there are 250 there. More than willing to have their chance to speak to you.
There were 250 there, and Mr. Campbell asked them to sign up, give their name and address, and sign up to their information being given to Campbell Live so it can be monitored. Now, we have privacy laws in this country. Even EQC, as the Minister of EQC, I can't dive in to find out what people's information is. So I'm now being put in a position of being told there are 250 grumpy people here. By the way, most of them had insurer issues, not EQC. 250 grumpy people here, and you need to solve their problems. You can't do it
if you
don't.
Them grumpy. No, They've got very, very serious cases.
With all due respect, so let me qualify that, because
They're a bit more than grumpy, I think, Jerry.
That's the wrong term.
They've got their lives put on hold at the moment.
Well, Beverly, that is the wrong term, and I certainly understand how they'll be upset, but I can't help if I don't know the information. And that program was a total setup.
I've only been involved with the Internet Party for less than 3 months, and I have been meeting with people.
Do you think?
I have heard their personal stories.
Do you honestly think that in 4 years of sitting in this position with an electorate office in Ireland open to anyone in Christchurch who wants to come to it, that I don't know about some of those problems?
Well,
that is grossly naive on your part.
Why are you not doing anything about them?
Irrespective of whether you turn, it was the right situation for you to turn up. Does it concern you that there are that many people who, have a grievance? And what, if you, are still the MP for Ireland after this election, what will you be doing to improve the processes around EQC? Because you are the Minister.
Well, I think the first point I'd make is that on building claims, there were 170,000 claims. 23,000 of those are with the private insurers. The balance are with EQC. And I think the numbers of people that you've now got in dispute or have an issue are incredibly low for the size of this problem. And so we can work it through. And I do want people to get good results. And I'm encouraged to see that those results are there.
What would you do to improve the process with EQC?
Well, I think one of the issues has to be the speed with which they are getting back to people who lodge a complaint with them. I think there also, you need to, I think, give some credit to the residential advisory service we set up, which does help people to understand that, like any other insurance policy, EQC has certain trigger points that it can't go past. So there are a range of things that will upset people.
Rental housing and the housing market, your government has pretty much left it to the market to heal
That's rubbish.
I'm sorry, no, it is. They have left it
land, John,
and
put back into the market.
National Party or the Conservative Party?
I'm talking about what the government has bought into the market and released. That just isn't true.
To buy land, to do a land swap, to develop properties at low cost finance. It wasn't taken. Instead, we've got a rental.
I do need to respond to that, because that is very wrong.
That is totally wrong.
Go ahead.
Well, the simple response is that there were people proposing land swaps, and they were saying to people that, look, you're in number 7, very broken street, so you can go over there to number 7 in Nice New Street, and that's your lot. You take the direct swap. We chose to keep choice in there. We did we've got an arrangement with private insurers and got EQC's reinsurers to agree to that land retirement program, the red zoning program, and people have been able to make choices about their lives, and for many, that has been very good for them.
They lost so much equity.
Well, no, that's not correct. That is not correct. That is a complete misnomer and wrong.
Sorry. We're going to have to take a break. When we return, we will still be talking about post-earthquake environment in the Christchurch area and the Islum electorate. Don't go far. Welcome back to election 2014. Before the break, we heard about the infrastructure, and it was more a debate really about the rebuild and some of the EQC and the EQR and the Fletcher's issues. But what we're going to talk about now is post-earthquake recovery, and I'd really like to talk about probably the same topic again. I think we're going to get back to it. We're also going to be looking at the area of the infrastructure, some of the the airport. I'd like to talk about some of the new housing. The issues now. James, I'm going to open with you. Where are you at? What do you think about
Can I, because I didn't have a chance to talk about infrastructure, I'd just like to go back and even though you mentioned the airport, which is technically in Selwyn, most of it, there's a lot of supporting businesses around here, the business parks like the one that we're in. And I think that those have played a really important role post-quake. So lots of businesses had to move here to areas like around the airport, also through Birmingham Drive and Addington as a necessity. But it's really important that we get those businesses moving back into town. And from the people that I've been talking to, economists and the like, they're saying that the market rents in central Christchurch are just too prohibitively expensive for them to look at moving their offices back into the central city en masse. So that's something that I think that we're concerned about, and that's as a result of the moves in the CCDU blueprint to buy up large tracts of the East Frame, which was about $600 million worth of taxpayer money.
I'm actually a businessman in the city, and as a businessman in the city, one of the other issues is parking. We must get all the partners concerned, government, council, and private, to come together to dig deeper into their pockets to provide adequate parking in Christchurch. There's no point putting up businesses
century city
and other things.
Should have parking.
We don't have adequate parking in the central city.
Even though we know that we're about to hit peak
James,
oil.
when you go out to Westfield Mall, you don't pay anything for your parking. You go into Central City and try and buy a shirt or something, you've got to pay parking. Now, that's a big issue for the retailers in Christchurch. It's got to be addressed. The other issue is not many people are living in the CBD anymore. We've got to have a blend of business and residential, because you will not have a thriving hub in Christchurch without people living in the inner city. So parking and people living in the inner city. It's a complex issue, but we've got to address it from a holistic point of view.
It sounds like a suburban mall that you want to have in the central city. In fact, the way that the land has been divvied up into these huge blocks means that it appears that a whole series of precinct/suburban malls are going to be constructed in the central city. 21st century city would actually build in proper transport infrastructure, public transport, cycling, walking. These are the things that people are doing overseas. You're talking about
Christchurch. They're all here.
Building yesterday's city.
They're all here.
With yesterday's technology, and frankly, it's a huge waste of money. It's grossly irresponsible.
I think, firstly, those sort of things are being built in. And one of the first projects that we're building, in fact, is the bus interchange to facilitate public transport in and around the city. We've further reduced the traffic speed inside the CBD to 30 k's to facilitate pedestrian and bike activity. And we would expect that working with the council, then cycleways will become very, very prominent and much better used in the new CBD area.
Well, the Greens have a $200 million
to build an old railway.
In cycleways across the country, and this is aimed at schools, and I'd like to see that happening in Christchurch. Children need to be able to get to school and be on separated cycle lanes away from roads to be safe, to be fit and healthy. This is what the Greens are all about.
Is a seasonal town. Cycling is not an option all year round. Elderly people don't want to be cycling in the middle of winter on icy roads, frosty roads. Christchurch is a seasonal city.
John, I biked to school all through my secondary school and primary school years, so people do bike year round. But the difference then was, of course, that the traffic on our roads was nowhere near as great. So we do want to see those urban cycleways that are separated as much as possible. So the National Land Transport Plan, which comes into effect next July if we're elected, has around about $90 million a year for the next 3 years for cycleway activity, and we've added to that $100 million for local bodies to get over their FAR rate, with their funding assistance rate, to make some of these things happen. Because unfortunately there has been funding in place but it hasn't been picked up because it's been on a 50-50 basis, and for a lot of councils that's too hard.
Does Skirt have enough money to continue with its road repairs?
Yes, Skirt most certainly has the funding to continue with its roading repairs. And I think,
despite the money that came out in the budget?
Well, there was no money taken out of the budget. And I think one of the things that has really been quite concerning over recent months has been the suggestion that that there was going to be more pressure put on the City Council to pick up larger chunks of that work. That's not the case. What we have had is, in recent times, I think a council being quite courageous about the acceptance of the Cameron Partners report that basically says that if they do nothing for the next 5 or 6 years, there's an $800 million hole in their financing if they spend on everything that they've currently committed to. So that gives you a lot of flexibility.
You've committed them to?
With all due respect, I don't sign on behalf of the Christchurch City Council.
They didn't ask
and
to
you
build
might have your
massive
general
stadium.
view. Well, I'm sorry, but the Christchurch City Council, when they ratified at the council table the cost sharing agreement, did not do that under pressure. They did it because they wanted to do it.
This was the last council.
I
Before,
see. So the next council just simply dishonours the previous agreement.
But this current council that has come in under the leadership of Leanne Dalziel and also some sound financial heads like Councillor Manji have sat down and looked at the books and said, maybe we don't have as much money as we thought. And so they've actually tried to scale back. No. But don't you think that they should be able to go to the government and say, look, guys, we need to scale back our ambitions?
Haven't you been reading the papers? Or don't you?
I do read
Do you just read your own blog sites, or do you read others? Because what we've said is that, and we've always said, consistently said since 2012, that in December of 2014 we'll be far enough through the Skirt program to be able to quantify it, and then we'll look at how the share of it is divvied up further. And as I've just said, if the council doesn't take any action, if they don't have a discussion with us, then we will get to a point in about 2020 where there's an $800 million hole. But let's be clear, the big projects going on in the city at the moment, the hospital, the Justice Precinct, the bus interchange, the Avon River Precinct, due to start the Convention Centre, all government projects, all government funded, no pressure on the council on those.
What's the agreement between the government and the Convention Centre, which says that $284 million of public money goes in, but we don't have any idea what the business case is?
No, there's no public money going.
There's no public money going into the Convention Centre.
There's no council money going into the Convention Centre.
Yeah. But
there is public money. The government's building it.
It's still public money, though, isn't it?
Yeah, the government's building it.
Business case.
So where's the business case?
Well, look, this is the sort of thing you do when you've got absolutely no ambition. You suddenly sit there
we've got plenty
and
of
start
ambition.
saying,
We want to see a beautiful city, but we
case?
don't think that
The
giant
question
convention centres are the way to go ahead.
Well,
with
Why
with
should we
all due
go into
respect,
debt?
with all due respect,
Why should we go into debt?
Hold on.
One at a time.
Yeah, tell me who's going to debt.
Exactly.
The government has borrowed heavily in the last few years, $15 billion alone for Christchurch. So if you want us to stop that, everyone wants to stop us looking after Christchurch, vote for the Green Party or vote for Labor. The fact is a convention centre will be good for the central city. It will bring people to the city. And we've gone about it in quite a different way. Before the thing is built, we've already appointed an operator so that from day one it has business, because these things have to pay their way.
Okay, it's time for us to take a short break. When we return, we'll be hearing from each of the candidates as they tell us what they will do in the next 3 years if they're successful in winning the electorate and what will keep them awake at night during this time. Don't go far. Welcome back to Election 2014. This evening, we're talking with the candidates looking to represent the Ilam electorate in the coming election on September the 20th. Before the break, we talked about the post-earthquake recovery. It's now time to ask the candidates, in a wrap-up, what they will do over the next 3 years if elected. So what are the first things that they'll do if elected? Now, the other question I want to ask them, for those of you who watch each week, you'll know what this question is too. It's time for the final question. What will keep them awake at night? Now, I'm going to start James Dan.
Thank you. So To wrap up, I'd just like to say that Labor thinks that we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here in Christchurch, and we should be doing everything we can to ensure that we have a 21st century city. We think that that means building 10,000 more Kiwi-built homes so that people have an affordable place to live. It means raising the minimum wage so that people have enough to feed their family when they get home after a hard day's work. We also want to do things like speed up the EQC process with the EQC and Insurance Court, because we think that too many people have been worn down by 3.5 years or 4, depending on which earthquake it was, years of dealing with insurance and EQC, and that's just not good enough. People need to move on with their lives, and Labor will help to kickstart the recovery through some of these policies. In terms of what keeps me awake at night, I do worry about the future of the city and what it will be like. I've spent a lot of time myself living in the central city, and the central city that I know, it does change every day, but not always for the better. And I'm concerned that if I have children, that they may then come in and live in Christchurch and see a very different one. And we really do have two choices. We can have a city which is full of people and vibrancy, is people focused and has cycles and cars, interacting with trains and other things, or we can have one which is focused on businesses and things without business cases. And so I think that that's the choice for voters in the Ilam electorate going forward and looking at this election.
Thank you very much. Green Party candidate, John Culture.
Well, what keeps me awake at night, I guess, aside from the cat snoring, is, like James, my concern that the city that we're building is not the one that we talked about in the Share an Idea campaign. That was a great exercise in community ideas and consultation. I'm concerned that we're building yesterday's city, a city that's based, a sprawling city that's based on cars and is all about business, and it's not about people. Build a city based on people, beautiful environment, you attract business in. So like you, the Green Party loves Christchurch, we love New Zealand. We're ready to stand and deliver. We're asking you for our party vote on 20th of September so that New Zealand can have a cleaner environment, a fairer society and a smarter economy. This is a crucial election for New Zealand. National's policies have put our kids and our environment at serious risk and will continue to do so. When 1 in 4 of our kids grow up in poverty and 60% of our rivers are unsafe to swim, it's something that we really have to take seriously. The Green Party has a comprehensive plan for a cleaner, fairer, smarter country. The Green Party will make all our rivers clean enough to swim in again and keep our beaches safe from oil spills. We will create a society where every child is better off. We will build an economy that benefits every New Zealander. I love New Zealand and I love Christchurch. Please party vote Green for a country we can be proud of.
Thank you. Internet Mana Party, Beverly Ballantyne.
My personal bugbear that I care most passionately about is the environment. So I'm really proud that Internet Mana stands for 100% renewable energy sources by 2025 and carbon neutrality by 2050 in accordance with Greenpeace's goals and recommendations. We'd also like to see an immediate moratorium on deep sea oil exploration, fracking and mining in sensitive areas. We're against further dairy farm intensification and we support alternative green industries and a knowledge-based economy and digital innovation. As the world becomes increasingly aware of the ramifications of climate change, New Zealand's got the chance to be a real world leader and reap both the economic and environmental benefits of being a leader in the environmental race rather than a follower, pushing forward with confidence. And Internet Mana believes in a green future for New Zealand, and so do I. What keeps me awake at night, though, is the non-voting, especially within the younger demographic. Last election, more people didn't vote than voted for the current incumbent government altogether. So you really need to get out and vote. It's really important. Otherwise, we're having a disproportionate representation, which doesn't make democracy work. So get out and vote for Internet Mana. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Conservative Party, John Stringer.
Well, look, as a local person who's got a business in the CBD, who lost my home in the earthquake, I raised my kids here, I care passionately about Christchurch. But the money that's coming back into Christchurch to rebuild our beautiful city is coming from the rest of the taxpayers of New Zealand. So what I care about is stable, responsible government. Now, the thing that keeps me awake at night is the worry of the mongrel government that we'll get after the 20th of September if you feel tempted to vote for Labour. Because if you vote for Labour, you'll also get the Greens, you'll also get the Internet Māori Party and some sort of amalgam that will last a couple of months and then we'll be back to the polls. So look, you've got to vote Conservative because no matter how much the National Party talks about it, they will not get sufficient votes to govern alone. 45%, maybe something like that. So we want 5% over the threshold for the Conservative Party, which gives you choice and greater stable government. And I want to offer you 5 things to get that 5% over. First of all, binding referendum, which gives you more choice as a voter in Ireland to hold the government to account. Secondly, we don't want discounted justice. If you get a sentence, you should serve it. 2 out of every 3 criminals has been in prison before, so we've got to look at the parole system. We want to end race-based systems. We want a system in New Zealand that is one law for everybody, regardless of what your race is. The first $20,000 of your income is tax-free and a flat tax rate after that. And we also want to enforce the referendum that so many New Zealanders supported. Less MPs, we want to cut them back to 99, smaller government, more efficient government. Vote Conservative in Ireland, vote John Stringer.
Thank you very much. National Party sitting MP, Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Well, the 2 biggest areas of employment for people in the Ireland electorate are in education and health, and sitting third behind that are professional services. So having a strong economy that allows the expenditure that we plan in education with the $100 million renewal plan for Christchurch, which Ireland will be part of, and also the rebuild, the $1.1 billion rebuild of the Canterbury University, extremely important, and I'd like to be here to make sure that those things get done. When it comes to the wider economy, then we do have to persevere with the rebuild of the Christchurch CBD, but also our residential suburbs as well. So I would like to see the EQC work completed, but alongside that, the CBD emerging, which is going to frankly be more private sector money than government money, but also then the Southern Motorway completed, the northern access issues for the city dealt with, and the Western Bypass continued as well. So a mix of big infrastructure projects for Christchurch, not the least of which is also the rollout of broadband through Enable, which is occurring at the present time. These are exciting times for Christchurch City and for Ireland, and I ask you to vote for National with your party vote.
Thank you very much. It's time to wrap up for tonight. I'm Tim Howe. It's been my pleasure to host another week of Election 2014. In wrapping up, I would like to thank the panel for joining me live tonight. We've got Labour candidate, James Dan. Green Party candidate, John Kelcher.
Thank you very much.
Internet Māori Party candidate, Beverly Ballantyne.
Awesome.
We've got Conservative Party candidate, John Stringer.
Thank you, Tim.
National Party candidate, Honourable Jerry Brownlee.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you very much. Next week, we'll be looking at the we're looking at the Wigram electorate, when I will be joined by Labour Party MP and Party candidate Megan Woods, National Party candidate Carl Varley, Green Party Green Party candidate Michelle Wesley, and we've also got the Conservative Party candidate, Green Party, Internet Māori Party, Lois McClintock. Apologies for that. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday, 7 p.m. on CTV for the last of our series of Election 2014 live debates.